Der amCast. Gespräche über Gottes Wirken heute und Mission weltweit. Herzlich willkommen zum amCast, dem Podcast der Allianz-Mission. Wir berichten über Gottes Wirken weltweit und Mission heute. Mein Name ist Simon Dirks und ich lade Sie heute ein zu einem Interview, das meine Kollegin Evelyn Clement mit einer Frau geführt hat, die anderen Frauen weltweit Hoffnung schenkt. Evelyn war für ein Praktikum für einige Monate auf Zypern und hat dort mit Transworld Radio zusammengearbeitet und mit einer Mitarbeiterin steigt sie ins Gespräch ein. Das Interview ist auf Englisch. Wer es lieber auf Deutsch lesen möchte, kann das in der aktuellen Ausgabe unseres Magazins Move machen. Viel Spaß.
I am Evelyn Clement and I have Jude with me. You work with Women of Hope, a ministry of TWR, alias Transworld Radio. Would you like to tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jude. I am the producer and the coordinator of the program Women of Hope in the Arabic language that broadcasts to the Middle East and North Africa region, 22 countries. What makes our region special is that 22 countries, they all speak English, they all speak Arabic with different dialects. And this is what makes it special, is that just one language can reach out to 22 different countries. And the Women of Hope program is a program designed for women, for Arab women in the Middle East and North Africa, which talks about topics that Arab women need to know about, or they search about, and they're not comfortable to talk about them openly. So this is what the program mainly does. It tackles emotional, psychological, social, spiritual topics that Arab women need to listen.
What kind of topics are these?
These topics, they range from spiritual questions to social questions. I can tell you maybe later in details about what we talk about. Psychology, emotion, spirituality, relationship with God, marriage, parenting, self-worth, self-value, different kinds of topics.
Is there a special reason why you use radio programs?
Okay, like nowadays, the media platform is so big, it's so wide. There are like hundreds of media platforms, and now with the rise of the social media and everything, the world has become one in terms of connection. But nevertheless, radio still plays a very important role, especially in the MENA region. Why? Because in the Middle East and North Africa, the women especially, they're not allowed to be as exposed and as open as the Westerns and as the Europeans. That's why when it comes to radio, which is a small device that women or men, adults, they can have and they can listen to these audio programs wherever they are, quietly, in a quiet time, privately, securely. Because when it comes to ministering to these women, security has to be taken into consideration. It's not something taken for granted. However, in addition to radio, the program is aired on the radio frequency, but at the same time, we are on different media outlets, such as social media, whether Facebook, Instagram, and we have the online internet radio, which is 24/7 broadcast. So we are everywhere. But radio remains the first outlet, and we don't forget to ride the wave of every single new media platform that comes our way. Because our purpose is to reach as many women as possible with whatever media we have.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there are also security issues in the Middle East, right? Because our Christian content is not that easy to send out there. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about the difficulties women face in the Middle East?
Yeah. For me, from what I have seen as a Christian and as someone who lives among Muslims, perhaps one of the greatest challenges is when the society or the culture or the tradition or the religion silences women. They shut them down, they shut them off. They're not allowed to talk. they're not allowed to speak. They're not allowed to think. They're not allowed to ask. When they practice this kind of oppression on women. And this is seen in different ways, whether it's in the lack of education. Women, they're not given that priority to get educated because it's a male-dominated society. And the male gets the priority to get a good education, whether at school or at university. So that's why girls, from the moment they're born, and I'm not talking about the Christian minority, I'm talking about the biggest population, which is the Muslim world. The male is the dominant figure, which means women are silenced, they're hidden from the world, and we see this kind of hiding through the veil that is imposed on them. They're not allowed to question, they're not allowed to think, everything is spoon-fed for them. And this creates inequality because the male gets all of the privileges that he can have, whereas the woman is not allowed even to think about these things. In addition to all different kinds of abuse that a woman can face, such as verbal abuse, emotional abuse, when she is totally shunned from the world, when the male figure in her life, whether her dad or her husband or her brother, they practice a kind of abuse toward these women. Physical abuse, every single thing, every single kind of abuse that you can think of. So these are the main difficulties in which there is inequality. And the reason for this, it's because of the religion, the dominant religion that teaches and encourages and empowers men to do this to women.
So how do you meet then their needs? How do you maybe try to uplift this woman?
Yeah. From my experience, I've been doing this for the last 9 years. I started this program in 2011, actually 10 years. Yeah. Yeah, it's been 10 years.
Congratulations to 10 years.
10 years. Oh, yeah. Now I realize that I'm getting old. So how do we meet their needs? First thing, it's through the radio programs and the audio programs that we do, because they're not allowed to question or to talk or to think. That's why we talk about these topics on their behalf, so we trigger these questions. And when they listen to them, a lot of truth is exposed to them. So through these radio programs that tackle these sensitive and taboo topics that they're not allowed to talk about, we talk about these openly, lovingly, wisely. And another thing, we meet their needs, is that we give them a platform to ask questions without fear, to open up, to share personal stories, heartaches. And all of this is done in a very secure way. So a lot of these women, they don't show their real name or their real identity at first. But then, as they build more trust with the follow-up team in TWR, and they become to feel that we can talk to these women, we can open up to them, and they listen to us. And something very important, how do we meet their needs? Sometimes we think that we just need to talk and preach on them and teach them. Many times, the only thing that they need is to listen. Just listen. Let the woman talk and just listen to what she's saying and cry with her and feel with her without giving any advice. And in this way, you will be meeting their needs sometimes way more than talking and preaching.
That's beautiful. So is there an opportunity that they can call you, or are they writing you?
Yeah, there are so many different ways in which they communicate with us. There is the regular email, there is the WhatsApp, there is the SMS, there is like the Facebook, Instagram, all of these kind of social media connections. And yes, they call, of course, they call using WhatsApp. And sometimes they call using like a regular phone call or Skype, or all different kinds of social media.
Because I was thinking about, like, in Iran, the government is really watching out on social media and stuff, and is kind of trying to control this.
Yeah.
So I was thinking in how far this may be a security issue, or I don't know, is there a security issue with that?
Well, definitely there are security issues, but it's not as conservative as Iran, because here in the Middle East, the social media is way more open.
Okay.
And they cannot track every single activity that's happening. You know, you have millions of voices there.
Yeah,
So what women do is that they at first they're scared, they're intimidated, they don't know if they trust these people or not. But then later, as this relationship and trustworthiness develops more and more, they go private. And this is where, like, communication becomes deeper, and they tell us their stories. It's not just a general superficial communication. It becomes more deep, more intimate, in which they tell us their stories.
Okay. So is there a special goal you have in mind for these women?
You mean like what's the goal of doing these programs? This is what you mean?
Yeah, or something. I mean, there may be for every season, for every program, maybe another goal which you maybe have in mind, which could change the lives of these women. But is there a special goal?
Well, for me, there's more than one goal. The first one is to promote awareness. Awareness is very important because I'm totally against ignorance. And unfortunately, the Arab women, because they are raised in such in this religion, ignorance is encouraged. Because the more you're ignorant, the more you're encouraged not to ask, and the more you're encouraged to take things as granted, as inherited from the tradition, from religion. So when we talk about things and we shed the light on important things, the first goal we're doing is that we are educating these people and helping them to come out of the darkness of ignorance they're in. Now, when they're out of this darkness, we work on their hearts, because I believe we are women, and what makes us special is our hearts.
Yes.
And how we think, how we feel. So if they remove the heart from our hearts, we won't be special anymore. You know, we're not mechanic as men. Although, as I told you, the first thing is ignorance. The first thing is, like, to promote awareness. So the mind is very important. But when it comes to a woman, there is a special way to talk to her mind, which is through her heart. And this is what we do. We talk all about these topics by talking to her heart. And there are different ways in which we can talk to her heart. One of the things, as I said, is when we listen, is when we don't judge, is when we show acceptance to what she's being through, is when we show her, and this is the core of what we do, how much she's valued and how much she's precious in the eyes of God. And how much God knows her name, even though she might be veiled from the world and people might not know who she is, but the Lord knows her name. And each one of them is special. And he knows each one of them by her name. And he came to die in order to give her value and life and worth. So this is the goal of everything that we do. And anything that they need, like any kind of advice, any kind of help, sometimes legal help, sometimes financial help. Although we don't help financially, as in financial help, but you'll be surprised that just a listening ear, just a small gift, can be worth more than millions that you can give them.
That's beautiful.
Let me tell you why. Ask me the question, why is this important for a woman?
Why is this important for a woman?
Yes. Okay, let me tell you why. And this comes here to the heart of what we do. Because in this region, sadly, women are not loved for who they are. 3 words I want you to remember. They are abused, misused, and used. This leaves the woman feeling unworthy. I'm worth nothing. Who am I? No one cares about me, not even my dad. My dad physically abuses me. My brother rapes me. My husband hits me. Who am I? I'm no one. I'm not loved. I'm worthless. So when it comes to this, to the core essence of not feeling loved, the woman is destroyed. Who is she anymore? And when they hear about the unconditional love of Jesus, when they hear about the Samaritan woman, how he met with her on the well, how he spoke with her, how he gave her value, how he gave her hope, how he forgave her, and how many stories of the Arab woman are very close to the Samaritan woman, to the adulterous woman who everyone was holding rocks, and Jesus said, whoever hasn't done a sin, let him throw a rock first. And we see how Jesus, when we shed the light on Jesus' unconditional love and how he gave value to these women and how he came to try to give you this value, this is what triggers them to accept the message, because they want to be loved genuinely. They don't want to be abused. They don't want to be taken for granted. They want to trust this kind of love because they don't see this genuine love in their daily life. So when they hear about Jesus' love, this changes everything.
That's beautiful. So I was thinking about what you maybe have as a personal message you want to share with these women.
Yeah, my personal message for these women is that regardless of their names, regardless of the veils they hide behind, regardless of lack of education they didn't have, regardless of all of the dreams that they dreamt about and were not accomplished because they live in a society where dreams are not accomplished, regardless of the pain they live in, regardless of the darkness, regardless of inequality, of unfairness of life, there is hope in Jesus Christ. And the message that we always say is the Bible verse, I have come to give them life abundantly. And there is hope and a future with Jesus. So this is the message that we always say in different ways, in different styles, but this is the main message all the time.
It's beautiful. How did you get to Women of Hope? Was there a special way, or did you just find out about it?
Because I used to work in media, I've always been involved in TV and then in radio, and I did for a few years radio for youth. And then when the opportunity of Women of Hope Arabic to start, because Women of Hope is broadcasted, I think now in more than 80 languages around the world. So back then, Arabic was still language number 17 back then. I felt it was a calling for me now to stop doing youth and now go for women, as I felt what it means to be a woman. I was getting older. I was no more a youth, in the sense of youth. Yeah. And I was aware about what's happening around me in the world and the women that I meet and that I know and the hidden pain they hide inside. And this is how the Lord opened this door for me. And here I am. We've been doing this for 10 years, and the Lord has blessed this small seed, and it has grown into a big tree.
Yes. Is there a story you remember, like something or a woman you met or you had a phone call with or something that you have in your mind that maybe sometimes reminds you, okay, I want to have more of these women who I can give hope to?
Yeah, there is a story that I share everywhere I travel, when I go and talk and speak about the plight of women in the Arab world. There's a very touching story that happened with me, and it opened my eyes to the need of these women to be seen and to be heard, and it made me see how many times we as Christians, because we're so privileged to be born Christian in the first place, and for us getting to know the Lord and having this freedom, many times we tend to put walls around ourselves and we don't see the need around us. And to make it worse, we look down at these women. Whereas these women, they need our love the most. Once I was at a gynecologist. I had an appointment with my gynecologist, and I was waiting in the waiting room. And there were like 6 or 7 women there. One of these women was totally veiled, this total black veil, from top to bottom. Not even her eyes were showing. She was wearing also the black gloves, total black. And we were waiting. And she asked me something and I replied. And from my dialect, she knew that I was not Jordanian. She knew that I was Lebanese. Yeah, because as I told you, we have different dialects. So she knew that I was Lebanese. And usually Lebanese are loved in the Middle East. There's something special about Lebanese. I don't know what is this, but...
You're special.
Thank you, Evelyn, you too. So when she knew that I was Lebanese, she really wanted to talk with me more. And for me, it was very weird, like, where shall I look? Like, I don't see neither eyes nor anything. So she was asking me about Lebanon, how much they love Lebanon, they love Lebanese. Like, what are you doing here? What brought you from Lebanon to Jordan? And, we were just chatting and talking. And then suddenly, out of the blues, she said, "Would you like to see my face?"
Oh.
I was shocked, there were women there. She said, "Would you like to see my face?" Like, it took me a few seconds to understand what's beneath this question. Like, I'm a total stranger, and she knew that I was a Christian, and I'm different from her, but she wanted to feel that someone is seeing her, that she has a face, that she's not just a black person in the darkness. And then I said, "Yeah, I would love to see your face." It was a very sudden question for me. And because she cannot unveil herself in public, she took me to another room and she started to unveil herself like one wrap after the other until I saw her face, and I was shocked that she was very young. She was extremely young. She was in her 20s, but she looked like in her 60s because how much the veil makes them look older, it hides them from the world. And when I saw her face, I told her, "You're so beautiful. You have such a beautiful face." And like, she was in tears and she said, "Yeah, I know, but I cannot show this face to anyone. But a voice in my heart told me to show you my face." And then I had the courage. I said, "You know what? There is a voice in my heart too that is telling me that I want you to listen to a radio program that I do." And while we were there in that separate room, I downloaded the app, the radio program, and I said, because she was telling me, "I love how you talk, I love your voice, I love your dialect." And I said, "Okay, if you'd like to hear me more, there's a way that you can hear me." So I downloaded the app and I played a few episodes. So she, "Is that you? Is that you?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." And she said, "Yeah, that's you." So she started to listen to Women of Hope program. I didn't have any contact afterwards, but I know that the seed was planted there. And I believe that the Lord will do his own part.
Oh, yes.
And this shows us how many times, and I would love you to quote me on this, because like, this is the core of what I talk about. Many times as Christians, as people living in a privileged country, especially you guys, those who live in the West, many times we are the women and the people who have veils on our hearts. We might not have veils on our faces, but we might have veils on our hearts, which blocks the feelings and the love towards these people who have inherited this kind of religion. They didn't choose it. It's imposed on them. They're forced to believe in it, to practice it. And once they decide to step out, they're persecuted, they're killed, they're imprisoned. And this should make us be blessed and thankful. Just because we have Christ in our heart and we have freedom to be a woman and to practice our womanhood and to enjoy the basics of being a woman.
Yeah.
Like many times we don't know what it means to have nice hair, to go to the salon and fix our hair, to show our beauty to the world, to show our skin to the world, while millions and millions of people, of women around the world, they're deprived and they're hidden behind these veils, not being allowed to practice the basics of their womanhood.
That's true. We can be thankful. I was thinking about if there's a favorite series you have with Women of Hope.
I have two favorite series. Actually, we've done more than 12 series, I think. It's like been more than 400 or 500 episodes on air. But one of my favorites, I have two favorites. The first one is women heroes of the Bible and how their challenges back then and deprivation, they're very similar to the Arab women nowadays. And how God in the Old Testament and Jesus in the New Testament gave them hope and a future. And we talked about Sarah, Rahab, the Samaritan woman, Leah in the Bible, all these kind of Hannah, like 13 women, I can't remember all of them now, how their challenges, their pain, whether or not being able to have children, not being loved by her husband, all these kinds of challenges, the shame, just the fact to live in shame, like the Samaritan woman, to live in constant shame, and how the women nowadays in the Arab world face the same challenges, like it has always been the same. It's 1,000 years ago, and even now, it's always been the same. The challenges, the pain, it's still the same. And this shows the power of God. This shows the power of Jesus, what he's done. That what he has done in the past, he still can do now. That the same way that Jesus gave hope, forgiveness, and a new beginning for those women in the olden days, he can still do the same thing with the same challenges that women face nowadays. So this is one of my favorite series because it tackles real life issues. I always love it when we just don't preach from behind a pulpit. When we talk, when we address practical problems, practical challenges, we get close to these women. And another series that I love is also like very practical. It's called Hope Amidst. Like you have hope amidst, and we talked about depression, death, illness, displacement, because we have a large population of refugee people, divorce, neediness, bullying, broken relationships. So this series is also very close-hearted to these women, and they can identify their needs and what they go through with these topics.
Well, that's so important. I think you hear many stories that are really, really heartbreaking. And I can imagine that it's not always easy to maybe feel kind of distant because you're not like right next to them. You can't just get into their lives as a best friend. But also you're in a way close. So I think you would still say there's a distant friendship. Is there?
Okay, when it comes to these women, because they all come from broken relationships, broken hearts, the only thing that they need is to be loved, to be heard, as I told you before. So at first, they need time to develop this kind of trustworthiness. And then when the ice is broken, a kind of friendship develops, and in which they dig deeper and they share their stories. Some of the stories are overwhelming. You cannot believe like there's a human being that undergoes this. At first, for me, I thought that this is impossible. They're being dramatic, this cannot be true. But later, when you see when you see the scars in their lives, when you see the emotional scars, even the physical scars, you are hit with reality, that this is reality. If we don't experience this as a woman, it doesn't mean it's not there. And it's very difficult because you need to be wise how to empathize with them, to show them empathy, and at the same time to keep boundaries, and at the same time not to jeopardize or risk their security. Because many times, while they are really hurting women and women in pain, many times they trigger these kind of things to put us into trouble.
Yes.
So there is a fine line how to go around these things. It always needs wisdom, a loving heart, how to choose your words, how to listen to them, to show them acceptance, and at the same time to keep the limits, to keep boundaries, you know, in order for both parties to be safe.
What kind of boundaries are these?
It's like you can share with me some things and I can hear you, but there's something I cannot do more for you, because these women, many times they come from this brokenness. They feel that you have to give them the answer, that you have to heal them, that you have to find a solution right now. You know, they are that brokenhearted, they are that helpless. And many times we cannot do this due to many different reasons, due to geographic distances, due to religious, political. There are many restrictions. So this is where the boundaries come into place, come into practice.
So these are also the difficulties Women of Hope faces in the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Some women, I can imagine, become Christians with your program. I mean, maybe that's also a goal in the end. What do you think makes them do this dangerous step? Because, I mean, becoming a Christian is not always that easy and can be really dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said, I mentioned it a bit before. The first trigger to these women to become Christians is the unconditional love of Jesus that they hear about, that they're not used to hear about, that they're not used to be loved like this. Like, is there really a person who is willing to overpass my mistakes, that I can stand in front of him without shame, without guilt? Does this kind of a male figure exist in life? Because as I said before, all of the male figures they see and they live with, it's totally the opposite. So these women, they're not used to be loved genuinely for who they are. As I said, they are misused, abused, and used. And they're not valued, they're not respected. So when they hear about Jesus' love and how he forgave the Samaritan woman and how he spoke with her and gave her value and how he didn't judge the adulterous woman, this kind of love, it melts all of the chains of their inherited religion. So if there is one word that I can sum it up, why would these women embrace Christianity? Why would these women come to Christ? It's just one word: love.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. I mean, in the end, I think this is maybe a lot of times the thing why people turn to Christ, because this is just unconditional love and you can't really understand it, but it's there. Jesus called us to unity, to live out this love. And as you said, we sometimes overlook these women who are veiled, also in Germany, because I don't know, there's kind of a distance I am feeling, because I don't know how to talk to them. Can they speak German? Do they understand me? Do you have an idea how we can live this unity, how we can just, I don't know, be with them?
Yeah, like I always say, Evelyn, it has to start within us first. As Christian women, as women in the West, it has to start within. The first thing, we have to break the bondage of fear. Because whether we accept it or not, what we have seen in media from these people is scary. They kill, they destroy. This is what they do. But as I always say, the problem is not in Muslims. The problem is in Islam. And there's a lot of difference. Muslims are people just like you and me who have inherited this satanic religion. Many of them want to come out of it, but they can't. And this is where our role comes. So when we break this fear, when we look at these women and we know that there's a human being, there is a soul, there is a face behind this veil, behind this darkness, behind this killing, behind this blood, behind what we see on TV, when we treat them as precious souls, and by the way, I'm no way better than them. Jesus died on the cross for me equally the way that he died on the cross for them. I'm in no way better than them. And when a Christian who doesn't accept Christ's love, he will end up in hell the same way they will end up in hell if they don't. So I'm in no way more privileged than them. When we believe in this, when we understand this, and when we find these women, whether we are walking on the street, whether we see them at a supermarket, if we are shopping, whatever we're doing, it only needs a smile. Just smile to these women. Just say hi to these women, especially the Muslims who have been, the refugees. There are millions of refugees now scattered around the world, the Western world. Just smile. Just say hi. Just say, like, how are you? Or maybe, like, you can learn a few words, in Arabic, in which you can start. I know that you cannot carry a conversation, but just a smile, just a how are you? Just how's your child? Are you okay? Just these simple basic things. It shows them that you have seen them and they have been seen. Just like the woman at the gynecologist who was seen, they want to be seen. Many times you think that it's mission, ministry, traveling, talking, fundraising. These are good. But for women who have their hearts, we're talking about hearts, who understand with the language of the heart. But for these women, just a smile, just a hello, just do you need anything? Will open a conversation and will show them that Christians, like in the Western world, they're people that can be loved. Because at the same time, these people have been brainwashed ever since they were girls, ever since they were in their mother's womb, that the Christian world is satanic, That's why they grew up with this anger and rage towards Christians. And they're not given the right meaning of what it means to be a Christian. It's what they see from the media. So that's why when we have the chance to look to these women, to talk to them, to give them a banana, to give them an apple, to buy something, to smile, anything, it all starts there.
I just wanted to ask you this question at the end, because you said it would be good to maybe just know how to say, hey, how are you in Arabic? So yeah. I just wanted to ask you this.
Yeah, how do you say? That's nice. First, when you want to say hello,
yes,
you say marhaba.
Marhaba?
Yeah, exactly. Marhaba, it means hello.
Okay, marhaba.
Maybe it's good to write them down. marhaba. How are you means kifik.
Kifik. All right.
Exactly. Kifik. It means how are you? Another nice question that you can ask, which is, are you happy?
Oh, that's good.
And this kind of question, I ask these women this question a lot. Are you happy? And suddenly she'll burst into tears, even without knowing. She will say, no, I'm not happy. And this is a trigger for her to start the communication with you. So are you happy? You can ask her, mabsuta?
Mabsuta.
Or you can ask her, I'm trying to use the words, that are not difficult for you to pronounce.
Thank you.
Mabsuta is very Lebanese. I'm afraid that, in some countries, they wouldn't understand mabsuta. Maybe farhane, like from the word joy, farah, it's like known by more people. So yeah, farhane, Farhane.
Farhane. All right. Thank you so much for this interview. It was so nice.
Yeah, Evelyn, it was so good to see you again.
Thank you. Blessings to you and your family. And Yeah, I hope we will see each other again, maybe latest in heaven, but I hope more earlier.
Let's hope before this, but in case we didn't, yeah, see you in heaven.
Danke für Ihr Interesse und dass Sie so Teil von Gottes weltweiter Mission sind.